By far this year, the shutdown of flights and the travel restrictions has been the biggest story and has caused the biggest issues in the industry today. Much of the restrictions have been in place out of fears of the spread and increased infections of COVID-19, something that we're just all too now familiar with. There has also been the question of the potential risk of catching the virus and getting infected while on board a flight. And this was a subject of a recent study conducted by the United States Department of Defense in coordination with United Airlines. In this recent study, both United and the US Department of Defense set out to answer the question of how safe are you from getting infected from COVID-19 on board an aircraft. This recent study was conducted by the US DoD's Transportation Command in partnership with United Airlines. Joining them were bio-research firms along with Boeing, who provided consultants to answer questions from the researchers. The group's experiments took place over a span of 8 days at the United Airlines hub at Washington Dulles, which is located near Washington, D.C., during April of this year. Mannequins were used to simulate passengers, and aerosol release devices were used to simulate situations of a person coughing while in flight who has been infected. The researchers had some of the mannequins with masks and without, and the masks that were used were surgical masks. To simulate the full flights, the aircraft that were used were two aircraft, a Boeing 777-200 and a 767-300 used by United Airlines. The reason why these aircraft were used were because they were more similar to the aircraft used by charter companies contracted by the US military. The aircraft and the mannequins were subjected to the aerosol test, which took place on the ground and in the air at around 35,000 feet. After a series of experiments which saw a total of 300 aerosol releases, the researchers found a less than 1% risk of inhaling a virus particle. Along with that, it also found that 99% of the particles released from an infected person wearing a mask were removed from the cabin within 6 minutes, compared to 90 minutes at a typical house. Based on a 100% capacity of the aircraft, you would need a minimum of 54 hours of exposure required in-flight to produce an in-flight infection, and the risks are greater if the passengers are seated at rows nearby the infected person. In addition to the basic premise of the research findings, the study is not peer-reviewed and also doesn't take into account other factors such as passengers talking and eating or drinking, as well as how correctly that their masks are being used. Now, we do have to keep in mind that because United Airlines is involved, that there is a vested interest, especially for many of the airlines of the world, who, even though they are allowed to operate, are only operating at bare minimums. So this study is an interesting start to a discussion on how to gradually increase the amount of passengers airlines can currently accommodate. While not necessarily peer-reviewed, this does show some promise and assurance for some passengers who are already flying and those interested in making their travel plans in the future. What's more assuring is the use of technology in air filtration systems on aircraft, known as high-efficiency particulate air filters, or HEPA for short, which usually catches around 99% of microbes in the cabin. This is likely a topic all too familiar with the mechanics and engineers working for the various airlines around the world, but for those of us who are not really too familiar with how the air circulation in the aircraft works, it very much circulates air from the engine compressors in and out of the cabin, usually at a rate of 20 to 30 times within an hour, more than the typical home, which would have a cycle of 2 to 3 times. Even more promising developments has come out from organizations such as IATA, which came out saying out of 1.2 billion travelers who have flown since the start of the year, there has only been 44 cases of possible infections that have been attributed to an airline flight. With these findings, it's probably not likely that airlines and governments are going to be increasing capacity caps anytime soon, as they would likely probably conduct their own experiments and we would be waiting for results of other trials ongoing or currently planned. At the end of the day, I don't think airlines would be able to take on the further prolonged challenges of travel restrictions and capacity caps as they bleed cash and struggle to survive. As for us travelers, I think at the end of the day, we also have to keep in mind that there is a lot of risks in anything that we choose to do. We can continue to practice social distancing, wearing masks, and practicing good hygiene such as covering your mouth when you cough. Some basic stuff that go a long way in stopping the spread of any viruses, not just COVID-19. For the complete study, I will link it in the description below, and I definitely would love to hear your take on these findings and the research study. In the meantime, this has been Flights in Asia, highlighting the news and updates regarding the aviation and travel scene in the Asia Pacific. This wasn't particularly focused on the Asia Pacific region, but if you like more of those kind of content, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Once again, thanks again for watching and have a great day.